So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this introduction. My name is Luce Early. You are here with us with Fort Worth Public Library. And today's workshop, I have Alexis Carter, my colleague. She is behind the scenes here. And as people join us, she will help us respond to any questions you may have using that Q&A. If you familiarize yourself with your screen just a little bit as you're watching, and you'll see that that should be at the bottom of your screen, the option to ask questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about today's workshop. The Build Your Basic Resume workshop this time is going to have two different portions to it. The first portion is where I'm going to talk a little bit about building your basic resume, but using templates. So my first focus is going to be on using templates. I'm going to talk a bit about using a Microsoft Word template. And then I'm going to talk a bit about using a Google template. And the reason for that is that the Microsoft Word application is not available to everyone. Some people may have that available, or they may go in person to one of our library branches and access the Microsoft Word application on a public computer. But again, not everyone has access to the Microsoft Word application. So I'm also going to talk for a bit on how to use Google and how to create a Google account if you do not have one, and how you can use Google template to create that basic resume. So it's a resume template available using your free Google account. The last portion of today's workshop, I'm going to share an exciting new platform we have access to as Fort Worth Public Library card holders. So I'm going to talk about that in detail the last portion of this workshop. It's very exciting. It's going to be the introduction to the JobNow resume resources. JobNow is a service, a platform of BrainFuse. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So let's take a look at your screen. And I'm going to talk for just a moment. What is this idea about a resume? What is that? Okay, so the resume is really a tool that represents you to an employer when you're absent. Okay, so it represents you. And I'm going to touch first a little bit on what is going to be really important about this workshop is that you think about preparing a bit of a draft, a rough draft of your resume. And that's what you're going to put on your template. You're going to need to start getting those ideas together. Some of you may be updating your resumes, which is very common. So you may already have most all of your information. Again, I want you to think about taking some time to gather all that material together to put your best foot forward on your resume. Another important thing is length. We want our resume to be a maximum of 2 pages. If you absolutely must go over 2 pages, that's okay, but we really want to keep it at 2 pages. So the next thing we're going to look at is the fact that there's a couple of different things I want to touch on here. And it's that there's a difference between a resume and what they call a CV, curriculum vitae. The CV is a very lengthy document that a lot of academic institutions and other jobs will ask you for. Today's focus is resume only. However, there is a little bit more information if you wanted to access it, and I will have Alexis, if you drop that into the little chat area from slide 2, I have a link for you from balancecareers.com. And in there, you will have access to a little bit more information about the difference between the CV and the resume. Again, the most important thing is that anyone who has registered for this webinar workshop, we have access to send you using the email that you used to register. We will send you a PDF, we'll attach a file, and I will send you via email the slides that I'm sharing today. So you don't need to remember everything that I'm sharing. You can just follow the slides that you receive in the file via email from me. It'll come from luce.early@fortworthtexas.gov. So I will be sharing that with you. So you don't have to remember everything that is shared today. You're going to have access to that via email. So let's continue a bit here. And I want to talk a little bit about this idea of text and how we spell out this word resume. When we're using internet or any electronic resources, we want to make sure we don't use any accent marks on our text. And I'll talk about this a little bit more in a moment. But you want to just use the word that looks like resume, but we don't want to put any accent marks when we're doing an electronic resume. Okay, so you just want to write it out without the accent marks. All righty. Okay, so the first step we're going to take is looking at using the Microsoft Word application template to create this resume. Okay, so when you use the Microsoft Word app, it's okay if it's a different version because this is basically a generic style to Microsoft Word when you're opening a document. I know that there are many versions out there and they're always changing, but this is basically what your screen is going to look like when you try to create a new file in Microsoft Word. So it's going to prompt you if you want to search, and you can see that here on the screen, on my screen share. So what you're going to type into the search is just basic resume. Again, no accent marks, but it's going to say basic resume. And it's going to pull up what you see on my screen now. Okay, so this is what you want to use. Alrighty. Okay, the next thing it's going to show you is, do you want to create? And that is exactly what you want to do. You want to create. So you want to select that image that says create. Okay. I just want to share that with you so you can see what your screen is going to look like. Alrighty. Okay, this next screen that I'm showing you, you can see at the top it says Carol Candidate. Well, that's where your name will be typed in. Everything that I'm going to share with you at this point, these are basic suggestions on how to build this resume using a template. Further on in this workshop, there's some really exciting ways where you're actually going to be able to access a live resume coach. So it's pretty amazing what I'm going to show you in a little bit about the JobNow resources. But for this part, I just want you to be able to open up a template in Microsoft Word and be able to think about the different pieces of information you want to put in this resume. As you are drafting your resume, keep in mind the length of the resume. You're not going to want to have a final product that is much more than 2 pages, okay? And a draft is always going to be lengthier and you're going to need to clean it up, so to speak. So I just want you thinking in those terms, that you're always going to be changing your text to fit within those pretty much 2 pages. So this first part is what we call a summary statement. And that highlights your skill. One of the aspects of summary statement is this. Your summary statement is, if you've been in a field for, say, 10 years or longer in that particular field, then a summary statement is a good idea. If you have not been in the field for 10 years, or perhaps there are lots of gaps in your work history, then that's when I'm going to ask that you probably want to focus on your skills and abilities, which is the next section. I'm also going to tell you that it is very important that you focus on that particular job description that you're looking for. What is the description of the position that you want to apply for? What does that employer say best describes that job? I need you to have that available to you at your fingertips all the time. Have it on your device, have it printed out, because that's going to be key. We don't want to see a job position and then just read through the description of the job duties and just not think about it again. We really want to focus and know exactly what that employer is looking for. And they place that in the job description. So let's say you haven't been in your particular field for 10 years or longer, and you just want to focus on your skills and abilities. Well, this is where you can list things like perhaps highlight the kind of work that you can produce, and maybe your technological skill, maybe some software that you're very comfortable using. You can also list foreign language skills. Again, you're going to focus on your abilities. Don't be too concerned if there's something you cannot do, because then you're not going to place that in your resume. Also, this next section on the screen is experience. You're pretty much going to think of the job title, the name of the company, and the dates, when you began and when you stopped at that particular position. A lot of this is going to be lengthy until you go back and start cleaning it up, is what I call it. You start polishing and focusing on minimizing how many words you use to describe any one skill or job task. Also, I want you to keep something in mind that I'm going to be detailing in just a moment. Technology is what we use. We use our devices. We use electronic to submit many of our applications these days. Now, the first person to see your resume is not a person. It's actually basically what you would think of a robotic process. And I'll talk about that applicant tracking system in just a moment. But this is where how many words you use are important and which words you use. You want to hone in and focus on keywords that describe your skill, and that those keywords also be found in the job description of the job you want to get. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. The next section here is education, okay? So as much education as you have, we're going to really focus on what it is that you've done. I don't want you to stress if you think, well, I don't have a lengthy amount of education. Just place in this section what it is you have, the school name, and then the degree, if completed, whatever that might be, if it is a GED, if it's a high school diploma, if it's a university degree, all the different varieties of education you can have. But what you're going to do is also remember, you're going to not want lengthy descriptions. You're looking for short, concise amount of text to describe that. The next step I have here listed is communication. What that really is communication not just with the public, because sometimes people might be in a job that doesn't work with the public. But that communication skill that you're going to list could be that you're very skilled at communicating with your teammates, the people you work with. And most jobs are looking for that you be able to work with a team, whether that team is 3 people, 30 people, 100 people, right? So that's where communication comes in. Not a lengthy description, but just touch on some of the strengths that you have in that area. Another area you can list is leadership. This is if you've held any position in leadership. It could be professionally or academically. If you have this, if and only if you have this, this is an area that you can list. And the last section is references. What I recommend is that you have more than 3 references, if possible, listed in your notes as you're preparing your resume. But typically, you're only going to need 3. That's kind of an industry standard, is 3. But again, it's going to depend on the industry and the employer. Sometimes it's going to be professional references. Some employers want professional and personal. You just need to really carefully look at that job description and what the employer is looking for. Again, you need to be really careful as you're preparing your material for your resume. So all the information that you gather that's complete is not necessarily going to all fit on your resume. I just want to make sure you take the time to structure and to make your notes and do your preparation so that you are ready to place this information on those approximately 2 pages. Okay, now for a moment, I'm going to talk just a moment about that thing that I was sharing, that applicant tracking system. This is where things are very different from how perhaps 25 years ago, how we did all of our interviews and we shared our resume. Everything was done face-to-face and in person. Well, that is not the case anymore, as we all know. So we need to keep in mind that it is not an actual person most of the time that sees our resume first. It is what is referred to as an applicant tracking system. And that's where you want to think about this and not include fancy images. Some people think, oh, well, if I just put some fancy image and graphic, mine will look so nice, so pretty. Only this isn't an advertisement, and it's not an actual person that's looking at your document. This is a tracking system that's kind of like a resume reading robotic process that's looking for keywords that it can recognize. When I say fancy fonts, I mean you want to use standard fonts. It's not about it looking pretty, it's about it looking clear. And this tracking system having the ability to recognize and identify every word that you've included in your resume. Some of those standards are Arial, Verdana, Times New Roman, Calibri. I have these listed, and I'll share this with you when you get your copy of the handout in the email that you use to register for this workshop. But those are just some of the standard fonts. And this is the reason why you want to make sure that your resume does not have images and your photo and these kinds of things. Yeah. I do want to tell you one thing, and I will do this. I will have, Alexis is going to put in the chat box, I believe it's slide 8 for Alexis, if she wants to list the place, and it's a hyperlink, and again, you'll get it in the handout in your email, but it's a hyperlink, and I've got that on slide 8, and it shares a little bit more information about applicant tracking systems and how these keywords work, because I want to make sure that everything that you want recognized on your resume, that it get picked up and noticed as text only by this system that basically reads your resume before an actual person sees your resume. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is for those individuals who do not have access to Microsoft Word, because we have many patrons here at Fort Worth Public Library that have often told me that they don't have access to Microsoft Word at home. Well, I am going to, I'm seeing I have a question here. Now, this is a great question. Let's see, we have Shay Hughes asking a question. He's like, where do I put my internship work? That's an excellent question, because that's going to go also under the experience. Internships are work experience, and you can also list volunteer work also. Very important, because we have employers that are looking for that volunteer work. If that's something you've done, I recommend that you list that as well. So yes, your internship would go under experience. Just everything listed exactly as if this were a paid role. You would list who you did the internship for, what the agency, the company, whoever that was for, dates, and then the same focus on the key things that you did in the job description in that internship. Right? Okay. Alrighty. So here, alrighty, let's see. Okay. And again, just like that, you can continue. I will keep an eye out for questions. And you need not worry. Also at the end of the entire workshop, we'll also make sure that any questions are answered. Okay. So please feel absolutely free to post those questions in that Q&A section there on your screen. So many people don't have access to Microsoft Word application. If you happen to not be visiting one of our library branches in person using the public computers and you are elsewhere, I will tell you that the particular Microsoft Word application, that's not free of charge. It's only free of charge when you go to the public library and use the public computers. Otherwise, there are fees. So for those who really need access to a resume template, one of the methods is a Google template, okay? Now I'm gonna pause, not really pause right now, but I really am going to cover this concept of creating a Google account. Many people have Google accounts, but many do not. Many do not. So I am going to address this right now in this workshop. So let's say you have access to internet and a device being your laptop, a PC, a smartphone, a device that can access the internet. That is all you need. You'll visit Google as if you're going to do a Google search. So if you take a look at your screen, I'm going to walk through this again. You may very well already have your Google account. That's fine, but I'm going to walk through this for those who do not. So when you go to your Google search, if you look at the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you see where I've put our wonderful red arrow. You're going to see a lot of these in this webinar. And it's pointing to a little grid of 9 dots. And that's actually the apps launcher. That's what Google calls the apps launcher. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to visit, come down here. You're actually going to select that app launcher. Okay. And what's going to happen is it's going to show you basically everything that you have access to, the apps. But if you do not have a Google account, again, this next few minutes is for those who do not have a Google account, you'll visit that image, which they call an icon. You'll visit that image that says account. The image that says account. Again, this is only if you do not have an existing account. Then here's the screen it's going to show you. There's your options. You either sign in with an existing account or you create a Google account. I just wanted to provide these steps for anyone that doesn't have a Google account, and then this way you can actually have your Google Gmail account. So this is where you actually create that. So that's an opportunity for those who do not have a Google account, or perhaps you have a friend that doesn't have a Google account and really doesn't know the steps. This is something you could easily share with them, and it breaks down those steps. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sign in, whether you just created your Google account or you already had one existing. You're going to sign in. Well, here we have the screen that you see when you sign in. Well, guess what? We're going to go back up to the little 9 dots of the upper right-hand corner of your screen on your browser, and you're going to launch that apps launcher again. So you're going to select that little grid of the 9 dots. What that's going to do is it's going to pull up that list again of all the applications. Well, you're going to select the docs one. The docs one, that's short for documents. So you select that docs and click on that one. And sure enough, it's going to tell you, okay, so let's start a new document. Well, all I'm going to do with you today, our focus is going to be on the resume. So I just happened to select this particular serif font resume. Okay, it's a template. That's the important thing. All we're doing is accessing a resume template. You see how a little bit closer to the top, it says template gallery. We choose resume template. Notice how there are no accent marks on the word resume. Again, this is all electronic. So this is why you're going to see resume written that way every time. So let's say I selected that. For the purposes of the workshop, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, the important part here is only to look at the fact that this is free of charge and I have access to create my resume and I have access to a template. What you choose to place is up to you on this template. You can change all this text you see. It's all up to you. What I did want to highlight on this particular Google template is if you take a look at the upper part of the screen, again, this will be on the handout that I'll share with you after the workshop is over, and you'll get it in the email you used to register. If you look at the top left-hand side of the screen, I put a little circle around where it says it's using Merriweather font. Well, that's a little bit fancy. I really want my font to be simple, plain, Arial font, Times New Roman, some of the ones that I mentioned earlier. This is where you can select and change the font. That's just what I wanted to bring your attention to. This is just another series of options of what you can include on your resume. Okay, see how this one is very different from the one we the template we used in Microsoft Word. This is going to be up to you. And moving forward, you're going to see some other exciting resources that you're now going to have access to about how to make this resume of yours really stand out and land you the job, or at least have the best shot at it. Okay, so when you pull up this resume template in Google, it can sometimes be a little bit surprising because they place this text in there and it's Latin, and you're thinking, what is this? This isn't a resume. Well, it's just placeholding. It's showing you where you can position your text on the page, because you can go in and delete whatever you want, add whatever you want. It is entirely up to you. You just want to have access to a template and not have to pay a cost to create that resume. And that's what this is doing for you. And I'm going to highlight one other thing, that as we move forward in the workshop, I want to make sure that you keep in mind that you now have the Gmail account, right? Some of you already had a Gmail email account, and some of you just created one a few minutes ago when you walked through those previous steps that we did using Google. Anywhere you come across in this workshop where I explain, oh, well, this particular step needs to provide an email, you no longer would be in a situation where you say, oh, no, I don't have an email address. Well, we've shared that in the first part of this workshop. And that's why it's excellent for everyone to at least create that Google Gmail account free of cost so that you can use that. You're going to need that when you're submitting resumes electronically this way. Okay. All righty. Again, be sure to feel free and ask questions. Feel free. I can always go back and touch on anything I've covered that you want to know more details. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Now, this next step that I'm going to cover has to do with the JobNow platform that we're going to talk about. And JobNow is through a platform through a company called BrainFuse. Now, the wonderful thing that we're going to walk through now is that because you have a Fort Worth library card, Fort Worth Public Library card, or you're going to get one, and I'll share some information with you in a moment, you're not only going to have access to JobNow, but you're going to have access to many features of JobNow that you would not ordinarily have access to unless you first sign in to your Fort Worth Public Library account. That's some of the things we're going to talk about now. And you can tell I'm very excited about this because there's some excellent support and features that really you're going to have a spectacular resume. Okay, so our first step that I'm going to share with you has more to do with that first part that I shared about that Fort Worth Public Library card. So that you can have access to all the resources on JobNow, not be limited. So let's take this step. And if you already have a Fort Worth Public Library card, that's fantastic. But I do want to share this because sometimes people will view a workshop, and this is going to be available online to view and through our channel, our Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel. You're going to be able to access this webinar to view it. And some people will view this webinar and say, oh, wait, I don't have a Fort Worth Public Library card and I want to do all these things. I want to access that JobNow and be able to create this awesome resume that's going to land me a job or land me a promotion, a better job. So let's take these steps to make sure that everyone has access to get that Fort Worth Public Library card first. So the first thing you're going to do is go to the fortworthtexas.gov homepage, first thing. And that homepage is City of Fort Worth, all the different departments. That's the first thing you're going to do. In your browser, okay, you're going to visit fortworthtexas.gov. Now, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to go straight to the departments page, because that's going to take us to our Fort Worth Public Library department, or we're going to stop just in case you do not have a Fort Worth Public Library card. Remember, I'm going to share that. So take a look. I put a nice big red circle. There's a great big red circle here. And that's where you can select to get all the information you need to get a library card. And some of you might say, oh, well, but I go to the library all the time. I go in person to the branches that I know that some of them had been, limited capacity because of the, circumstances. But still, many of you, it would be great if you go in person to our library branches, but also use so many resources that we have that you access online. So I want you to be able to do both. So here, if you're online and you want a library card, then that's what you're going to do, okay? If you don't already have one, right? All right. And that's going to be very, very user-friendly. You can it's going to walk you through some very clear steps so you can get that Fort Worth Public Library card. Okay, let's say you already have a card. You're going to go to the departments. I have my red arrow and my circle here, and you're going to select it. You do that. Okay, so when you go to the departments page, it's going to give you the opportunity to select Fort Worth Public Library, and that is clearly what we're going to do next. And that's what you see here. So here we are in our Fort Worth Public Library page, but now you see that I've put in a red circle there, the account login. You're going to log in to your Fort Worth Public Library account. That's your step. Now, to do that, for those who haven't been doing this frequently, or maybe you haven't logged in to your public library, Fort Worth Public Library account in a little while, and maybe you don't remember. Well, when you log in, have your card with you, unless you have your card number memorized or you assigned a username and you have it all memorized, you have your card with you. Many users maybe haven't created username, so they'll just use what we call barcode, and that is on your library card, okay? You're going to place that here where it says username or barcode, and I'm sharing my screen and you can see that, and then of course your password. Okay, and you log in. So here you are logged into your Fort Worth Public Library account. Well, what I would like for you to do is first, now this is where I like to share the details. I like to share the details because there's several steps that I want you to be able to always go back and check and make sure you followed the steps that you need to get where you want to be. That's why I made these steps apparent, and I did the screenshot for you. First thing you're going to do, you're going to go to databases, okay? You're going to select databases. Now that is on the bar here, these tabs. There's a tab that says databases, and I selected it. I gave you a nice big red circle around that one. So when you choose databases, okay, remember, feel free to ask any questions as we get further into these steps, and questions based on what I've already shared is perfectly fine also. So you select databases, and then it's going to give you this long list. What I would like for you to select next is jobs and careers. jobs and careers. And that's where the handout that I share with you via email is going to be very useful, because you can always go back and think, oh, okay, which one was I supposed to select? It's jobs and careers. Also, if you're watching this workshop webinar as a recording on one of our Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel, when it's posted, you can just always go back and pause the video and see what those steps were. So there's so many options of how you can easily walk through this process. You do not have to memorize all of this, not at all. So you go to first to databases, then to jobs and careers. You select jobs and careers. We're almost there. We're almost where we want to be. Here we go. Well, this is starting to look familiar. What's going to happen is one of the selections is going to be Job Now. And that's the one you're going to choose. You're going to select or click on Job Now. Okay. Remember, you can always go back, view the recording when it's made available on our YouTube channel. You're going to be able to see this recording and walk through those steps, just in case some of this got a little bit confusing. You're going to have this available to you. Okay, so I select Job Now because that's where I want to go. Okay, here we are. We're there. You see at the top that you know you're there because you see our Fort Worth Public Library logo at the top there. That's because you're logged in to your Fort Worth Public Library account. But then the top left, there you have it. You see Job Now is listed. So you're where you want to be. Remember, you can always go back. If you've missed a step, you're always going to have the option to go back. If you're watching this workshop as a recording, you can always go back and continue on with that. Okay, so here we are at Job Now. BrainFuse is Job Now. So if at any point you're asked to create a Job Now account, remember you already have an email address and you can just make up a username, okay? So if you need to create a Job Now account, that doesn't require any special steps, just you make up a username and you have an email address. And now everyone has an email address because we walked through the process of getting yourself a Gmail address if you didn't have any at all. The reason that I select over here this My Account and I put that red circle around it is because, oh, this is going to have all the information and it's going to have a little bit of deeper information that you could always come back to. Now, this screen is going to come up in this workshop several times. So if I describe something, I'm definitely going to come back and talk about it. So I'm not going to skip. I'm not going to skip anything. It's just there's certain things I want to touch on first and I want to explain. Well, take a look. There's one thing that's very exciting here. If you look across the top, it says job coaches, Job Now coaches, resume coaches and job coaches are available every day from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but this is what's very exciting. 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. and that's our Texas Central Standard Time. And it's available in other areas, but we're focusing on here in Fort Worth, so the Central Standard Time. So that's 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. So now what we're going to do is look at the rest of your screen. You see how it says resume on the left-hand side. At the center, it says job interviews. And on the right, it says career. Well, today's workshop has a focus on resumes. So this left portion is what we're really going to target today. There's so many resources on Job Now, but we're going to focus today on the resume area of this, right? So where it says resume, let's take a look. I also want to come back to what I shared before we go into the resume. Remember, I said that this portion on the right where it says your account had some really interesting information you can always look back at. Although today is a focus on resume building and resume resources, there's some things that I really want you to know that are available now that we have access to this excellent JobNow platform through Fort Worth Public Library. If you take a look, it says, if you look at your screen, it says my account and my past sessions, my message center, and then a series of other options. For right now, what I want to talk about is the my past sessions. You're going to be able to do actual live sessions with the job coach. And that's why that says my past sessions. Okay, we'll talk about that again in just a moment. Okay, let's backtrack for a moment and take a look again, the left-hand side of your screen, and it's going to say resume. Well, today we've been talking a lot about templates, right? The whole time in this workshop, we've been talking about templates. That's why I'm just going to make sure that you know that within JobNow, there are resume templates. It's the second selection on your screen there, and I put that red arrow. There are resume templates to choose from. So this is just one of many ways that you can access resume templates. But let's stop for a moment. By the time you come in and really want someone, oh, you want a live coach. I want someone to coach me through this. It's a really good idea to have that draft that I talked about, that resume draft, or that original resume that you're updating. You want to have that material already ready, okay? That's the best way to step forward here, is to have that available, have that, the draft of your resume already ready, okay? I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So we're pretending, right, for today that you already have that draft ready. We're going to look at this next part. Okay, here's the exciting part too. It's the live resume expert, okay? This is a live resume coach, okay? This is what you're going to interact with here. So you're in JobNow, you're on the screen, you select live resume expert. This is going to be what you're going to see. Okay. And what I like to share in this workshop is exactly a visual. What is it that I'm going to see if I go in and I select this live resume expert? You know, what's my screen supposed to look like? Well, I'm going to walk you through a couple of these things here. When you see this live resume expert, one thing I'd like for you to do with me is take a look at the bottom right-hand side of the screen that I'm sharing here. You can see that. It says, welcome to BrainFuse. A tutor will be right with you. Well, I want you to know when it says tutor, it's because that is a separate service of BrainFuse. Okay, what you're going to interact with is a job coach. So I don't want you to get confused and think, oh, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong place. You're not in the wrong place. You're fine. It's going to be a job coach, a resume coach. What's going to happen in this live session, remember I said this was a live session. So what's going to happen is they're actually going to communicate with you. This is what's going to show up, that someone will be right with you, just like any other live chat sessions you've had with agencies and companies and businesses. This is someone that's actually going to communicate with you. Where I've placed my arrow on the screen is where you are also going to be able to communicate with this live coach. This is where you're literally going to be able to use your keyboard and type in information to communicate with this live coach. One interesting thing you can do, you're not limited. You can actually come in to this live coach session and type in that I am practicing, I do not need help right now. If that's what you wanted to say to this live coach. I'm just letting you know, I don't want you to get nervous when you think, oh, there's a live person here. I don't know what to do. I haven't practiced this yet. Maybe you just want to log in and get comfortable with the screen and see what are some of the things that you can actually access on this screen. This is very user-friendly. This is entirely up to you. This is designed to help you. Or let's say you are ready to begin, you can type when it prompts you that the coach is ready, or that it may say tutor, you can type, I need help with my resume. Okay? So already that person is going to start having basically like a virtual conversation with you. Now take a look at this next screen, same screen, but I've highlighted something different here. Look at the lower left-hand side of your screen there, where I've placed my arrow. Okay. There are all the tools you can use to place text on your whiteboard. You're like, okay, what's the whiteboard? Well, look at the top part of the screen where it says Brainfuse Whiteboard. Think of this as your own dry erase board where you're placing all your information. Here, there's so many things you can do. What I pointed the arrow at was text, so that you can type into this white area here. You can also, and this is important, you can also have your resume open on your device. You've opened your resume. You can copy and paste as much information as you like into this whiteboard. That's available to you. You might think, okay, well, why would I do that? Why am I going to do that? Well, guess what? This live job coach is looking at the whiteboard right along there with you. They can see everything you place on that whiteboard, and they're also going to interact with you on this whiteboard. You will see what they type, and they will see what you type. So if you copy and paste information, that coach can see the information you're copying and pasting. Let's say you wrote one whole page of your resume and you're thinking, boy, I really want some live help with this. I don't know. This doesn't look right. You're going to come here into this live coaching session. You can copy and paste the information onto this whiteboard. Then you can ask whatever questions you like in that lower right-hand corner, and that coach is going to help you. That coach is going to help you. So you can ask questions, make comments. It's going to be basically interactive with this resume expert coach. Okay? This is very unique to have access to this. So there's so many features that you can use on this lower left-hand side of the screen. And I want you to feel comfortable. You can practice doing this. It's not like, oh, if I log into a live session, that's my only chance and I'm not able to do it. You can do this multiple times. You can get help from the job coach, and I'm going to give you some more information on how you find out some of the results of that. But let's go back and say anything that you have happen in this live session. Not only are you interacting with this live job resume coach, but it's also going to be a recorded session. Remember I said that on that drop-down menu that says My Past Sessions, Your live sessions are recorded. You can come back and look at them again. You don't have to think, oh, wow, I logged in, I used that whiteboard, that coach helped me. I don't even remember what they said. I had so much going on. They're recorded. You can come back and watch that session whenever you like, or not if you don't need to, okay? Those live sessions are live at the moment, but then you can see them again, okay? So they're not gone forever. You can always come back and see them again, which is a great, great feature. This whiteboard also allows you, with these tools on the lower left-hand side of the screen, they also allow you to create images and do formulas and all kinds of things. So I want you to be able to know that you can come in here and actually practice communicating. You can practice communicating with that live coach. You're not limited, okay? So I would like to go back here for just a moment. I know we were in Live Coach, but let's go back to the screen where I talked about my past sessions. When you come back to this page and you leave, you log out, and then you come back, you log in and you come back, you're going to be able to pull up all this information. It's going to be in your past sessions. That live session, if you have a live session, I have a live session today, and tomorrow I think, you know what, I want to go back in. Lou said I could access my session again. Well, you sure can. You're going to come back, you're going to drop down in this menu, and you're going to go back to my past sessions, and it's going to be available to you. The recording of that session is going to be there. Okay. Okay. So let's go back where we were to that live resume expert. Again, you can always ask any questions if you have any questions. Okay, and that's where the text is. Okay, when you're doing these types of sessions and you're in JobNow, okay, and you're using this platform and all these great resources, you may see the screen come up. It's normal. It's asking you that JobNow wants to know what you think, okay? So here, if you take a look, it says, here's that word again, tutor survey. In your circumstance, you're focusing on job resources. So that's really coach survey. I want to highlight that for you. And anyone else, any of your friends or colleagues that uses this service, make sure you let them know that what you're working with is a coach, because tutoring is a service of BrainFuse. It's a separate service. So you're dealing with a coach. So that's why it says, it's asking you, do you feel better prepared for a job interview? That's because this is a live resume coach you were working with, okay? And you can always put comments. Also, so many features here that are very exciting. If you see here at the top, very top of your screen, this is replay session. It's just another place where you can access a session that was live and you want to see it again. So many ways you can access the information and go back and review. You don't ever have to feel like anything that you worked on, now that you've got your Fort Worth Library, Public Library card, you've got your access to JobNow. You never have to feel like everything is lost. You can always come back. When we're focusing on resumes and getting that resume ready and job resources, you can always come back and refer to this. Okay. So here we are, and we have looked at that there's resume templates also on JobNow. We visited the live resume expert, very exciting. Remember that in our region, our Central Standard Time, those are available from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. Okay, so if it's really, really late at night, then you can just come back the next day. There's always things that you can prepare prior to sharing with that live expert. So there's always resources that you can be working on if for some reason you're in that time frame outside of the 1 p.m. to 10 p.m., you can always be in JobNow working on getting your material together, okay? The next thing, also very exciting, is what is called Résumé Lab. Résumé Lab. This is wonderful. You're going to see that you're going to be able to take your resume. Let's say I created that resume. And I think, oh boy, I really wish I have a completed resume. I really wish one of those experts could look at it and tell me what they think. This is where that's going to happen. You're going to go to Résumé Lab, and I have it here on the screen. It's the 4th selection from the top. Okay, when you think of a lab, think of a laboratory where you turn something in and then you get results. This is excellent. Here at the top on Résumé Lab, you can attach, now listen to this, in our workshop today, we focused on resumes. Well, when I've done this workshop before, prior to having access to the JobNow platform, I've had people ask me, Luz, in the webinar Q&A, Luz, what about cover letters? Well, now I have an excellent direction for you if you're thinking about, how do I make a cover letter? I already made a cover letter and I don't know if this is what I want to do. I don't know if this looks right. Well, some job positions don't ask for a cover letter, and that's okay. But many jobs do. So recommendation here is that you at least have one available, have one ready. But here we are with Résumé Lab. Résumé Lab actually allows you to come in here where I have my first red arrow. You can upload a file from your computer. The file can be your resume or your cover letter. Okay? You're not limited. You're not limited by that. You have lots and lots of space. Here in the maximum file size, your file can be, you can have several files. And remember, we're not including images in our files because these are resumes and cover letters. So your file shouldn't be that large. So you should be able to include multiple files for this expert to look at if you choose to do so. So here at the top where I have my arrow, you can see that up here. It says you can click browse or select from your computer and upload your file. Well, there's another excellent feature here. Very excited about this. Look at where I have another arrow. It says to receive the best personalized feedback. In this area, you can type in any extra information you want to share with that expert. If you have comments or areas you would like for them to focus on, that's where you let them know. Let's say you wrote that resume and there was just an area, like our friend Shay was asking about where to list the internship. Let's say you had other questions and other things that you were wondering, well, did I list this in the area I should have? Should I provide a little more detail? I'm just not sure. This is where you can type that in, and that expert is going to take your information in their lab, look at it, and they're going to give you feedback personal to you, personal to you. Here, I have my arrow and it says, when you're all ready, you've included any files you want to include, you typed into that text box anything you want them to focus on, anything you want to ask, then you submit. And it has a selection to submit. Now, the reason I have a couple of other arrows here on this screen is because I would like for you to look on the right-hand side again, and it says Learning Account Features. Again, where I have the arrow and it says My Message Center. You might be thinking, well, wait a minute, this resume lab is not live. How do I know what the expert has to tell me? How am I supposed to find out? Well, this is where the expert, usually within 1 business day, don't get nervous if you're looking and it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's exactly 1 day. I would give it a little bit of patience, but usually within 1 business day, you will have message. The message, if you look at the bottom of the screen, those are your messages. So if you see a little sample I have here, it says the message is from Tutor Connor. Well, Coach Connor, that's just the person's likely last name, and that's who it's from. So your communication using this resume lab, that communication back to you, that essential feedback is going to get to you through this messaging. Now, here's something that is really impressive. At least I found this very exciting. When they give you feedback, it is not an email with a couple of comments or just 2 sentences or something. It is detailed feedback. Detailed feedback. For example, I just placed this on the screen. Here's an example. You'll have that comment that it was a resume, as you see toward the center. Then towards the bottom, there's suggestions. And these suggestions, I'm going to go back to that screen. These suggestions are not going to be just 1 or 2 statements. They're detailed help for you. Not only is it detailed help for you, you can get help where they give you a preferred format. They show you that preferred format. Then they show you what you originally had. Okay. This is where this is such an excellent tool, because maybe the method that you used to display your information was not the best method. Even if the text you typed in was exactly what you needed to type in. Okay? That's where this is such an excellent tool. These resume experts are experienced in what is the best look for your resume and how best it is organized, how to best organize visually your resume. So this is something very, very important. And once again, you're going to see, even in this sample feedback message, it says they do not recommend resumes that are more than 2 pages. Okay, so we're not looking at 4 and 7 and 8, 9 pages. Sometimes we really have a lot of information, and I understand that. And that would be that very first draft before you ever really placed your information into a solid resume. Okay, so yes, you may start out with lots of information. Take the time to bring that information and focus. That's what I say all the time. Just focus. Focus on keywords. Focus on the keywords that match your skill best. Focus on the keywords that employer provided in that job description. That's something you're always going to keep in mind. And remember the suggestion that you have that copy of that job description at your fingertips. You basically learn every single area that employer is looking for, okay? And you focus on that. You may be applying for different positions. Then each one of those positions, you're going to fine tune how you present your information. Okay. Okay, I want to make sure, and I'm looking, if you have any questions, please be sure to, if you have any questions at all, I will be reaching out to you through email. So you could always communicate back with me. It would be from the luce.early@fortworthtexas.gov here at Fort Worth Public Library. Now I'll be communicating with you. So if there's something that you really aren't sure about, you can always send an email. You can always communicate with me that way. But I want to make sure that today, live here, you post any other questions you might have. Alexis, if you have any questions, feel free to post them. So this way, when I keep asking for questions, it's mainly because if I've missed something, and then someone else wants to view this workshop recording, again, it'll be made available Fort Worth Public Library media channel, our YouTube channel. It's going to be made available later. Then there may be questions that you have that somebody else might have also. But the JobNow resource is extremely user-friendly. Oh, I'm so glad. Enjoying all this great information. I'm very glad that you are. So that resource, there's something else I want to share with you. Okay, now, there's a last section here. This last section, just on the left-hand side of your screen where it says resume, it says optimal resume, optimal resume. Now, this is a much more extensive feature, but when you select this feature, this is what's going to come up, okay? Now, this is very personalized. So what BrainFuse is going to ask you to do to access optimal resume is to create a different logon account. It isn't so much, it's not complex or anything, but it asks many questions so that you can fine tune your needs on that account. You can provide them with username and password, that's the standard, as you know. You create usernames, but sometimes on optimal resume, it's a little bit different. It asks a lot more information. It may ask, okay, is there a contact, phone contact, many other questions that you may want to provide and then have your own account so that you can get into optimal resume. And I encourage you to explore this. Why? Something very interesting. The optimal resume also has a feature in its document center. That's what I have circled. There is a feature to do a practice interview. So the resources, I must say, are almost endless. They're almost endless. What the most beneficial thing is that JobNow is not just providing you with lots of texts and hyperlinks and go here and go there, but you also have access to a live person that can look at your material and give you really solid suggestions, excellent suggestions. And you're not waiting 6 months, you're waiting maybe a business day or two, or if at most a couple of days, but you really are getting access to an expert who is looking at exactly what your needs are and is going to help you along the way. So that's what that last one is, that optimal resume. So the other thing I encourage you, come in, log into Fort Worth Public Library. You're looking for that new job. You're looking to maybe in the future get a new job. I encourage you, log in and work through these selections, even if it's not something you're going to act on in the next couple of days. Work through this, see what it is that best suits your needs. So many resources here. Excuse me. There are other aspects of this that are very detailed. Today's focus has been the resume. It's a resume workshop, but there's so many other details that JobNow can help you with. So I'm going to do one last call out for any questions. So if any question has come to mind, please place that in the Q&A. Also, I am going to share with you that when you finish and exit this webinar, the screen should prompt you with a survey. Please, pretty please fill that out. That helps me so much. That helps all of us so much. Our team, our adult services team is working hard at providing programs and services for adults. And this particular service, we really need your feedback on what aspects of it were useful, how you found out about this resume workshop, and these things. So your feedback is essential. If for some reason it does not prompt you, then when I send you that handout, then I will also provide you with the link to the survey just in case it didn't prompt you after you exited the webinar. Okay, so we are at the close of the information today. So I'm going to come here. Okay, I'm going to tell you, just highlight, take some time to plan out that resume. Read through the job description of the position you're applying for, and be familiar with what the employer seeks in a candidate. That preparation, as many of you already know, but I just need to emphasize that preparation before you actually hit submit to that employer on that resume, that preparation is going to go a long way, a very long way. And the great news is that through access through your account with Fort Worth Public Library, you have access to the JobNow resources, and you have help. You have so much help now at your fingertips. And then through the JobNow, you have help from experts. So I do want to say a special thank you to Alexis. Alexis, I thank you so much for all your help today. And she's an excellent support. She's been very helpful today in posting all that information in the chat for us and monitoring any questions you had. And so with that, keep an eye out for also all our social media channels for and our Fort Worth Public Library website, which you have the steps now that we shared to access our public website. I want you to be able to know that there's so many more services coming around the corner. There are many more webinars coming up. And again, don't forget to fill out that survey when you will be notified and see when this recording is available on our social media, actually the Fort Worth Public Library YouTube channel. You'll see when it's available to watch this. I encourage you to share this with your friends, share this with your colleagues, your employees, your teams, so that everyone knows that they have access to this excellent resource through a Fort Worth Public Library. Okay, and I didn't see any other questions. So thank you so much. Thank you, Alexis, and thank you for participating. And we are going to close this out today, and we look so much forward to seeing you in the future. And I truly enjoyed sharing this resource with you, and we hope to see you next time. And I thank you so much, and you have a safe and great afternoon.